to them, that was hard.
Yeah, bro. Putting the logo up was a hassle because, well, in the beginning, once we put the TV up there for whatever, it was brand new.
Yeah.
Stopped working out of nowhere.
But yeah.
Like I would turn it on, be perfectly fine. One day we went to do an episode, went to turn it back on and put the logo up for the guest.
Yeah. That was in the winter,
Just
wasn't it?
stopped working. Yes, it was a brand new TV, bro. I have no idea what was going on with it. But ever since then, I was like, okay, I need a TV to put up here. So now I'm stuck with 3. So that actually still, that's
so
the one.
Those 2 work, and then there's one that's missing.
There's one right there, 50. Okay. I think that's 40 some, that's 58.
Man.
And
we out
that's the one that didn't work. It works.
I know where I'm coming if I need a sports bet right here in this room.
Whenever the sports, because the main season is football. So you got NFL, you got college. What would be the other one? And sometimes we just throw the game.
UFC, MMA. That's huge. That's the money tree right there, man.
So that's what I'm trying to get that third one put up.
Dude, it's been forever since we've been in here. Holy hell. Well, what was it? December the last time we were here?
Was it really?
Yeah.
Well, I know it was. Our last guest was Alex. And that was awesome.
That was great. That was
a great episode.
Yeah, no.
I just wish we would have kept that momentum going. But let's kind of talk about what the reason was for us kind of stopping. I don't really. Yeah. It's been a while, right? I mean,
so, me personally, like I bought a house back in December, so I've been pretty busy, fixing that stuff up. And last year was interesting. I think that I needed a little bit of time to just disconnect from the world a little bit and, focus on me and what I needed to handle to make myself happy, first and foremost, and then also kind of be a good uncle, friend, and son, I lost shortly after Alex was on here, I lost my grandpa, so that was kind of hard to fathom. And then I also, there's a lot of stuff I had to let go of last year, and I needed to kind of just disconnect and focus on my family and my foundation for a little bit. And obviously this is a place where, we like to spread wisdom and learn from others that we have on here. But honestly, I probably would have just been spacing out because I just wasn't in the headspace or the capacity for it at the time. And it's crazy, I thank God. I really do, man. Without him, these trials and tribulations, man, that you couldn't get through them. And I'm very blessed. I'm grateful. And I texted you before I got here, and I was like, there's 3 things that I want to cover today.
Yeah.
And we'll get there.
Yeah.
But what were your? You were pretty busy. We were trying to get things rolling again too.
Yeah, so. I think the goal was never to just stop. It was, and especially for this long, it was a pretty decent break.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild because I feel like, it really wasn't like that. I can kind of already picture everything we've already done in the past.
Yeah.
But I think once you were ready to go, I was going through my own things. Not to get too deep into it, just kind of long story short, the beginning of the year, like as soon as I got back after Christmas break, back into work, I was dealing with some health stuff, and that lasted, bro, probably 5 months. So like I'm just getting out of it.
Yeah.
But nothing. It was nothing. Straight up, it was nothing. So I was just kind of going through that mentally. And it was just kind of like you said, you can't be in a bad place trying to do good or trying to spread wisdom.
Yeah.
And trying to, we can't just be disrespectful, not only to each other, but to the people we have on here. We want to give them the best that we got. And, when you're in that space of not being present, it's very easy to kind of spiral, space off into something else in a conversation.
No, 100%.
Especially when there's something about sitting down here and you got these cameras in front of you, these bright lights in front of you. It just changes a little bit. So it's kind of difficult to kind of stay on topic or just kind of be present when, you got a lot of other things going on. So.
And, I don't know. So the thing that keeps me going every day now, and I don't know, if you're kind of in the same boat, is I wake up and, no matter what mood I'm in, no matter when I'm down, happy, sad, angry, confused, I look at it this way. We're a part of a plan that's much bigger than the one that we have planned. And the good Lord has his hand on our life. And it's better I was listening to a podcast, since we've been out of here, I've been trying to dive into neurological, psychological podcasts and motivational stuff too. So, I listen to, Modern Wisdom. I listen to Alex Hormozy, listen to Joe Rogan, all that good stuff. And I stumbled across this thing, and it said 21 hard truths about life. And Alex Hormozy's sitting there, and he talks about how it's your choice to be happy. Yeah. And if you have a million reasons to not be happy, it's still your choice to be happy. And it's just all about how you carry yourself, and the things that you feed yourself are huge too. And talks about the effects of music and social media and what you're feeding your brain. And to touch on that, at the beginning of the year, I was talking about no social media, right? Yeah. Got about 5-6 months in from not posting or, kind of just disconnecting from it. And I realized that it wasn't necessarily that I needed to disconnect from social media, but the things that I was feeding myself on social media was I needed to, clean that out and filter it out and really kind of focus on the good things. And during that time, I realized that, social media is just a perception and a perspective thing. You could act like you have $1 million and are living on top of the world, but really, are you? Yeah. What's your definition of happiness? Is it the dollar sign, or is it the experiences you have in life? And during this time, I really went on a deep dive onto, who I was internally as a coach, as a person, as a brother, as a nephew, as a son. And, honestly, I think it just all stemmed from when my grandpa passed away. I just needed to, it made me realize that I wasn't there enough. And at the end of the day, when you're sitting on in your last breath, you have to think about, who got you there, and then the people that are there, and, the people that are with you. And, the best way for me to do that was just to kind of disconnect from the world for a little bit. And I'm glad that I did. I'm in a much more clear state of mind. I got my house. I'm taking care of my body, and obviously the 3 things that I want to touch on. I don't know if you're cool to start, touching on some of those things.
I wanted to kind of talk about that beginning statement you were saying, you and your quote. It's God's plan.
Mm-hmm.
It was reminding me of what was it a healthy man wants a million things, and a sick man wants one. To be healthy.
Yes.
So it was just kind of reminding me of that, and it's kind of weird because that's just kind of what I was feeling in the beginning of the year. I just want to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be okay. And you talking about it's God's plan. It's already written.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to go about life when that is the mindset. Mm-hmm. When you do realize that, when you do know that, because it's just you go through a lot of hard times, and you go through maybe some things that aren't so big in the world but might seem big to you in the moment. Yeah. You can just kind of you know what, it's not meant to be. I can breathe. I can let it go. I am who I am. This is what it is. Yeah. And it's been very easy. No. Not been very easy. It's been easier to think that way and to view the world in that perspective.
Well, there's a podcast that I mentioned about how your story is the best story you're ever going to read. I genuinely think that a perfect man's life isn't perfect. They just work to make it that way. Mm-hmm. Nobody you see that has $1 million, or, I was thinking about this on my way here. I was listening to church, and it was basically talking about how comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
It dives in a little bit, talks about, would you rather have a souped up truck, a Honda Civic, or a nice Lamborghini? And it talks about how, the Lamborghini is only good for 50 miles, the Civic's good for 200, and the truck's good for 100, but the truck bed doesn't work. And it's if you look at things that way, I'm taking the Civic every time. You know what I'm saying? The thing is you can't compare what somebody else has, because they might have all these things but still not be internally happy. You know, there's people that I, you know, work with now in my occupation that don't necessarily have the best life, but they carry themselves like they're very happy people. And it's not about the dollar sign you make, but rather, you know, are you happy in your situation, and are you making yourself happy with what you're doing? And that, like, the last year, I would say, Irv, like, genuinely just has made me so much more of an observant person, and rather the fact and watching others and their actions, you know, looking within and what I'm doing. And you know, it's been quiet, to be honest. Like, it's been really quiet. I'm kind of disconnected now. You know, I still talk to my friends and family, and I go out, have fun, travel, but I've kind of really been focusing on the things in life that really, really matter. You know, your family, your physical and mental health, like, those things will create longevity. You know, you wouldn't be where you're at without your family, and if you had bad health, well, you're not going to last too long. So those things really do matter, and not just that, but your faith as well. You know, you got really deep into your faith, and I know that you've been active in your church, and you know, that's something that is also important to me, and you know that, and it's just kind of crazy to see, you know, this time last year, right, where I was at. I was kind of struggling, and I didn't know. I was kind of a lost, you know, 23-year-old trying to make things work, and I honestly didn't. You know, there was a lot of things that I still had not forgiven from, you know, 6 years prior or whatever it was. But I've learned that the art of forgiveness, consistency, and, you know, those things really kind of create peace, and you have to, you know. Whether you're sitting on something from 12 years ago, 6 years ago, 6 months ago, 2 weeks ago, you know, honestly, man, like, the best thing you can do is learn to forgive and just continue to lead with a servant's heart and to be kind to others. And I genuinely, full-heartedly believe in that. And I think that we grow up in a very deranged generation that kind of struggles to get that concept.
I think we just get to experience more life, right? Trying not to just say, you know, old.
Yeah,
but
we're not old, but
we're
getting there.
You start to realize how much things don't matter. Like, a lot of things do not really matter. You start to realize, like, you know, it's tough. It's like let's throw money in there. Let's throw maybe the past relationship. Let's throw in, you know, just the thoughts of other people. Sometimes those things really do not matter. Mm-hmm. And once you start to realize that, you will find that peace. And it starts, like you said, the comparison is the thief of joy. You know, that's kind of like all, like, the thoughts in your head, and you start to think, like, what are they thinking about me? And, like, you just can't
do that. You can't do that.
You got to let that go. And I think I've done a much better. I mean, obviously we can always do better, but I think I've definitely done a lot more of that here recently. Just kind of they don't matter. Sometimes these made up thoughts in my head do not matter. Like, again, it goes back to family, it goes back to faith, it goes back to the people that are there for you.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And so my question to you would be, like, okay, talk to me about something that you've been comparing, or have had trouble in the past.
So my big thing is, like, my relationships with my friends and my family are really something that I compare myself to. Like, for example, I'm the youngest on my mom's side, and all of my brothers are married and have children.
Right.
I'm alone. I have my house. I have my job. I'm coaching. Like, I have these things, but in that, you know, I tried to rush things. I tried to rush relationships. I tried to rush connection. I try to rush things, and honestly, you can't.
Yeah.
You have to kind of go at your own pace, and you have to trust that God has a plan for you, and that the people that you meet are either going to be for the long or for a season. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. But it's a lot better to, learn to let go of things and to be okay knowing that it's in God's timing, not yours.
Right.
Because if you don't do that, you can, find yourself in sticky situations that you typically don't want to be in.
You start spiraling. You just kind of start losing yourself a little bit.
Yeah, and then, on vice versa, like I'm the middle child, or I'm kind of the middle old child on my dad's side. And I see, it's just hard to balance sometimes. I'm 24. My, Gus is 17, about to be 18. I have my two little brothers, Max and Oscar, and trying to be a good example for them is a big thing for me now. I used to go out and do worldly things all the time, whether that was, going out and partying or, those things just ideally aren't who I am. I mean, I do like to go out and I do like to go have fun, but I was doing it honestly to an excessive amount to where I wasn't there for others and I wasn't able to get the things done that I needed to. And it was really taken away from my time, forming relationships with my siblings, other people, my family, my friends. And, you just kind of learn as you grow older that there's more to life than all that worldly stuff, man. Like I enjoyed, doing yard work or, going out on a boat ride with my aunt and uncle or, my Indian Lake buddies. And, and honestly, it's kind of crazy because even through these stages of life, I honestly think that, losing my grandpa is what really kind of got me into a deep dive on who I want to be and who I am. He was a great man and honestly taught me so much and was always there when you needed somebody to talk to. And you don't really see that a lot in people. You don't. We grow up in a generation that's really self-entitled and self-centered. And it's just very fake. And I really hate to see that because, that's not ideally like a moral thing to be. And I think the best thing that you could probably be is wise and to one thing that he always used to tell me, Irv, and like this is something that stuck with me and something that I thought about as the stuff was kind of going on. One thing that he had instilled was that it's better to listen rather than continue to speak. Like when somebody's talking, act engaged, actually full-heartedly hear what they're saying. And that was something I really, really struggle with and I struggled with. And so my thing is now I really try to hear people and not just hear people, but feel them, like really feel what they're trying to get at. And that carries over into coaching too. And that's the thing. This last year, I've really kind of seen the hard comparisons of coaching and reality. And there are a lot of connections, and that's why the Huddle I think is a very important place because you get to talk about somebody's athletic life, but at the end of the day, there is a giant correlation between who you are as a man and who you are as an athlete, or who you are as a coach, or who you are as a man or a father. And there's big comparisons there, and that's why I really enjoy to get in here and. That's why I was really happy to hop back into this, truly.
Yeah. And, you talking about that whole situation, you trying to be the bigger man for your brothers, and, your grandfather just kind of passing down on you. It reminds me of a saying that I don't remember where I saw this, but I saw it so many years ago, and it's always stuck with me because I want to live that life of So it kind of goes like this. It was a dad. I seen it on a podcast or some clip somewhere. It was a father talking about his relationship with his son. And it was just like, if my kid is in trouble, I want him to be able to tell me about it.
Yeah.
I don't want my kid to, if he's in trouble, I don't want my kid to be afraid to come to me.
Yeah, no.
And that kind of, the way he said it, it stuck with me because it just kind of reminded me of like, my relationship with my father, it was in the very early stages of life. It was kind of more of that being afraid to tell him,
Yeah.
yo, I need help, or yo, I need you right now, or I need somebody. And I don't think I'm the only one, especially with the generation they grew up in, because I don't blame them at all. I understand that it was very, very different place back in the day. So I took that quote, man, and it's always stuck with me because I wanted to make sure I could help out my younger brother, and I feel like I have done a pretty good job of making sure when he needs real help, he can come to me. And there's been a few situations where he's needed guidance, and he might have found himself in a little bit of a situation where I was able to comfort him and pull him away from whatever it was. And that made me feel really good. Like, him being comfortable enough to come to me about something so serious and vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's just the type of relationship I need to keep building with him, but also my future kids, bro, because there's nothing worse than being in a spot where you're so afraid, when you feel so alone, where you need help from someone else and you don't have that relationship with somebody.
I got a really good quote for you. One that, kind of floats in my head every now and again, especially with the society that we grow up in. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like we grew up in a very depressed generation. I really do. And as a coach, I see this stuff very often. Droopy shoulders, people talking back to coaches, hanging their heads really easy, getting down on themselves. Like, there's things that you can see as a coach or as a mentor that kids do that really kind of you can see, and it's just like even in the nonverbals, you're seeing the depression and stuff as you get older. And I think that I don't know if it's something that social media is stemming, but it's something that I try to improve, and I know that you try to improve too, with a lot of positivity and spreading gratitude. But one quote that really has been sticking with me is real people need real people, and fake need to find the real.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that it's always important to have wise individuals in your corner that not only one push you, but two can be 100% real with you. And even if you don't want to hear something, they're telling you straight to your face. And, like you said, when I was younger too, I used to be really bullheaded, very bullheaded. When my dad needed help in the yard, I was drooping my shoulders. I hated doing it. I hated it. The older I get, the more I realize it was in those times that I got 10 times closer with my father. Mm. And even if it's something that you don't want to do, you don't want to look back 10, 15 years from now and something happened and you regret not being there. And that the art of being present is huge. And I got 3 things that I want to cover today, right? The art of comparison, the art of letting go, and embracing opportunities for growth. And then I also put an honorable mention here, sports being an escape not only for athletes, but the coaches that are coaching the sport. We don't really touch base often about, how a coach's life is affected by the sport or the game. And I feel like that's something that we can also touch on. But as far as, the art of comparison, we kind of touched base on it a little bit, talking about how comparison is the thief of joy. I see kids as athletes all the time, like, he's doing this, why can't I do that? Or, he does this, why can't I do that? And one thing, that I'm trying to currently focus on within my defensive line room over at Ben Logan and our team is we are, we are a family, we are a unit. Whatever one person's going through, we're going through it with them. And I think it's just really important that you kind of instill that narrative, because it gets rid of the me nature of things. And the worst thing I think that you can possibly do, especially as you age, is just be extremely selfish. It's good to be selfish in certain instances, but typically, like, spreading gratitude and, like, being there for others and putting somebody else before yourself that like being unselfish is a very important thing to do. And I try to teach that to my athletes, I've been I train on Sundays, the defensive line, some of the guys over at Ben Logan that have graduated that are continuing to play sports in college. And one thing I tell them all the time is like, find somebody on your new team or find a group of people and try to be, almost like not a role model, but somebody that they know that they can go to if they need something. That's instilling the family nature of things. And I tell my kids all the time, like our breakout this year, our defensive line room, whenever we're breaking, it's I am, we are. Because, as much as some people feel like they're walking through life alone and don't have anything, or as much as athletes feel like, they might be the one-man show or they might be, all a team has, you got brothers, man. You got people that have your back. You have your family in real-world situation. You have your coaches in an athletic setting. And, the art of comparison, these things kind of stem off of that. It all just kind of branches off. But as an athlete, when you compare yourself to somebody else, I really think it diminishes and depletes your purpose and your value. You could be a role player. Just embrace it, because when you embrace things as a role player, it can elevate you to a whole different game that you didn't know that you had, We have guys that are role players on our ball team. And honestly, it's getting them to embrace that, because once you embrace that, other people will notice that you're not selfish. And, being unselfish as an athlete and being unselfish as a human, I feel like those are two very, very good characteristics to have. Now, there's situations that you need to be selfish in, but, as an athlete, when you compare and try to, say this person has these things, so I need to get them. No. Do what is comfortable for you and, find peace in the fact that you are who you are as an athlete and as a person.
Sorry, you kind of reminded me. I got on my phone real quick because I wanted to find something. And I think everything you're saying is right and correct. Yeah. And, I am, we are. And it just reminds me of a story that I wanted to share with you. It was my junior. You know what? No. I'm going to keep it very short, like very, because I don't want to out this person, right?
Yeah.
Very great athlete. But yeah, we break the huddle, and he's upset because he's not having the game that he wants, and he throws the ball at our center, and obviously that rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
As in, like, I'm not doing that here. We're not doing that here.
Mm-hmm.
I've never enjoyed people thinking that way, like that they were just so much bigger
above,
than the team.
Yeah, no.
I've just, bro, again, it just always goes back to like doing things the right way, doing things the way that they should, just listen, be coachable and stuff like that. Well, when that happened, mid-game, I don't know. There wasn't much said, there wasn't much done. The game just continues, right? But that was just kind of, I'm not going to say his full character, but obviously there was something going on there. And it was very cool to see that, after years go by, he hits me up not too long ago, and I just kind of want to read the message just to kind of show you, these young athletes, we can't be like that, because once you're like that, you're gonna live with a lot of regret.
Yeah.
So I wanted to read this real quick. Let me see real quick. I may have not always been the best role model or friend, but I wish you nothing but success, my guy. If I ever came off in any wrong way to you, I apologize. So it was just kind of like, you just want to do the right thing always, and there's gonna be guilt. There's always gonna be guilt if you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing. And
I think that, like we touched on the forgiveness aspect, living in forgiveness, like that's a huge thing, because eventually it catches up to you, and it kind of haunts you in a way. Like you wish that you could have gone back and done this differently, X differently as an athlete, X differently as a person.
Before we keep going, I just wanted to add on to that, just because, again, it kind of shows you what my view was and what his views were during the time. He goes on to say, young athletes could learn a lot from you. The dedication you had and how humble you were, no matter no one had the amount of drive you did, and you were always positive no matter the situation. And if you pass that on to these next generations of kids, I'm sure some of them are bound to be great. He said, you may have looked up to me then, but now it's me looking up to you. So again,
that would have got me pretty.
I know. So like again, like in the he was great. He was like, that was it. Like when I was a kid, for freshman, sophomore, he was always older than me. I looked up to him. I wanted to be him. And when that situation happened, there was a lot of respect that was lost from me to him. I was like, oh, I don't want to be that.
Yeah, no.
Or at least I don't want to be that part of you.
And comparison is the thief of joy, man.
Correct. So
like, be you.
Yeah.
Essentially, be you, because at some point in your life, when you're comparing to someone else, or you have something that somebody else doesn't, or they have something you don't, that doesn't defeat who they are as a person. You know what I'm saying? Like you're talking about in this instant, this individual, might have swung you the wrong way as an athlete. Well, the person he is comes to shine to light a little bit, and he comes back to say, I look up to you, and what you're doing is great. That right there, dude, like, just because somebody's a certain way when it comes to athletics doesn't mean that that's who they're going to be as far as a person goes. But at the same time, like, be you. Be you. Don't, like, I found myself often as a young athlete, high schooler, kind of going through those phases of life, trying to impress others and trying to fit in, quote unquote. And those are days that I look back on now, and those are days that I regret. Like, why weren't you just yourself? Because honestly, who I am now, I'm very glad that I grew to be that person, because the kid then was just trying to impress people, was trying to fit in, and was getting walked all over. And it was just a situation that, like, I had a choice to be in, and I chose to do it because I compared myself to others. And just being who you are and being authentic to the person that you're trying to be and want to become, dude, those things are freaking huge, man. Like, they're huge. And that's why, I wanted to bring up the comparison as the thief of joy. I see athletes all the time, especially in this younger generation, that are trying to kind of fit in. Like, this person has this, so I want to get it. Or things of that nature. And that's okay to a certain extent, but understand who you are as a person. And if that's going to defeat your character and who you are, then don't do it. Like, don't do it. Just be you. Be the athlete that you want to be. Develop the way that you want to develop. And most importantly, just be coachable, Just because somebody's trying to coach you up doesn't mean that they're trying to change you. And that's just not in athletics. That's life, right? If, say, like, Irv, like, you've been sloppy at this, dude, like, and I want to help you improve. Please tell me something that I can do in return to improve on, and I'll do it. Like, the way that you respond is huge, right? If I'm like, Irv, the audio in this episode, it's kind of sloppy. You'd be like, oh crap, man, like, what can I do better, right? Because that's the type of person you are. Yeah. But there's also athletes out there that, like, if I'm like, hey, you got to do this better, please try to improve it, I can help you, if you need me. Those athletes will talk back. There's some athletes that'll talk back, push back on you, deflect, and just completely shut you out. But that's just not athletics either. That's life, dude. Like, there's athletes that do that, people that do that. And I feel like the worst thing you can be in this life is not coachable. Like, just because somebody's trying to help you through something, or, help you get from plan A to plan B, don't stop them halfway in the middle. Like, understand that they're not trying to, like, as an athlete or person, understand that somebody trying to help you isn't necessarily them trying to control who you are as a person or an athlete, but they're trying to help you develop and grow. And some people really kind of don't get that philosophy, and some people, shut that out. Like, we have athletes all the time that, I'm like, hey man, you need to slow this down, or you need to make sure you're listening during this drill so that you really can focus on getting it. And those athletes, there's some that really do listen, and they evolve, and they shoot up, and they do really good things. But then there's also the athletes that you tell to do something and they continue to do it wrong, right? you have that.
Yeah.
But, that's real. That's how it is. Like, people listen and there's people that listen, Some people listen and it's one ear out the other. Other people listen and they really consume it. And athletes, particularly as a coach now, I've been able to see that firsthand. And crap, man, even as a person, that's the correlation I'm talking about,
Sometimes it's kind of difficult to really understand some of these guys that aren't coachable. Because I feel, again,
subliminal.
I've been very coachable. The whole time, whatever it may be. And I know you talk about how maybe you weren't the best at some point.
No.
But it's always just like, man, kid, like these guys, these kids, these girls, like you just gotta. It's difficult because people always want to blame the coaches. They just always want to blame the coaches. And I've worked with plenty of coaches.
Yeah.
I've seen seen how things are ran. I've seen how different everything is. And it's just not the coach. It's just, I won't. What I'll say is, you just have to listen. You just got to do what you're told. You just got to show up. It's very simple. Very simple. You just have to do things the right way. Mm-hmm. If you do things the right way, it will happen. If you show up, no. You can't just, you cannot just show up. You gotta be there. You gotta be present. You can't just show up and not do the lift. You can't just show up and just be on your phone. You can't just show up and talk. You got to show up and you have to do the work. And let me tell you what. These are the only, if we're talking just high school, no, forget that. If we're talking high school, college, you have 4 to 8 possible years.
Yeah.
And then after that, buddy, the real world is here. And let me tell you what, it's going to kick you down. It's going to kick you down every single time. Nothing that's going to prepare you for the real life more than sports will. But if you just are this guy that has always been cocky, has always just kind of gone through the motions, brother, I'm telling you, bro, life is coming to get you and it's coming fast, bro.
Yeah, and that's why like I say, don't compare yourself to others. Be you, right? Like, be coachable, listen. And, like, the thing is even as, like, an athlete, the aspect of being coachable, and what I'm trying to talk about is, like, not just when you're playing sports, but in your occupation, a teacher, a relationship, a father or a brother or a nephew. All of these things involve being coachable in some aspect, and involve some communication, some sort of coachability, and it's just really sad to see sometimes that somebody that might have your best interest is being shut out, or shutting you out, and you're just trying to help them evolve as a person, and I hate to see that, especially in my athletes. Mm-hmm. That's the one I really, really hate it, because, you're like, not to toot my own horn, but I know what I'm talking about when it comes to defensive line stuff.
Yeah.
That's something I've done since I was, peewee. Yeah. And, I've been around a lot of a lot of coaches that I'm grateful to have known, and they have really gave me a lot of wisdom and I, like, a little bit more IQ from what they've taught me. And the worst thing that you can do is look at a coach that knows what he's talking about and be like, whatever, dude, you're just trying to control, my game or whatever. And you're just trying to change this and that and make me into this player. Like, yeah, maybe I am trying to turn you in that player. You could be an all-star athlete. You could be a first team all-state player if you would just listen. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or, I could be a better brother if maybe I listened to some of the advice that I've received.
Right. And I also feel, okay, so there's 2 things, right? Okay, before we keep going on with that, I want to touch base on where this might correlate to real life. For example, if you don't show up to those lifts, if you don't show up to your job, you're gonna get pointed out and you're getting fired. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to communicate, if you don't know how to talk, your workplace is going to be a very hard job to be at. If you don't know how to lead, for example, that can sometimes be a problem at work. I'm telling you, all these things are going to be very useful when you get into the real world, when you get into real life. You're going to need to show up. You're going to need to be good at your job. You're going to need to be just being able to communicate. But, going back to what you were saying was, I do feel for some of these people sometimes, because it's like they go home to even more poison. As in, they go home and they're being fed nonsense. They're going home being fed, no, your coach is wrong. no, you got to do this, you got to do that. You got to, don't listen to your coach, actually, sometimes. And as parents, sometimes it's just like, how are you doing that when you're not there? When you don't know the work and the hours that these guys are putting in for your children? How do you know what's good or what's best for them when maybe this coach played college ball, or when this coach has coached up first team, second team type of guy?
Yeah. No, 100%. And that brings me in to what I want to touch on next, right? To kind of wrap and summarize what we just talked about, comparison is the thief of joy. Be who you are, be authentic to yourself, be coachable, and comprehend things, and understand that, your coach, your brother, your partner, whoever it is, might be trying to help you get somewhere in life. Don't shut them out, hear them out,
Again, let's not forget, this is life.
This is life.
These are human beings. Nobody on this planet is perfect. So everyone is making a mistake, whether you're 15, whether you're 24, whether you're 45, it doesn't matter. Sometimes the coaches might be wrong. Yes, sometimes. But they're there for your best interest, man. So that's where I don't want to get like...
That is good. That is good right there.
I don't want to say like, yes, your coach is perfect. Your coach is always doing this and that, and he's never wrong. No, he's human.
Yeah,
we're all human. And we all make mistakes.
That brings me into something. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. You might have a perfect day. You might have a terrible day. You might make the perfect decision, but there's times where you're going to make the wrong decision. We are all human, like you said. There's perfect and there's creating perfect, and understanding that everybody's kind of flawed. I really like that. That got me going.
Also, yeah, because I didn't want to sit here. And
I kind of wanted to run through the brick like a wall after hearing that.
Yeah,
that
honestly,
really
Cole, you got me fired up, bro. We got onto topics that I didn't know we were going to touch on, and
so this gets me to roll into the next thing, right?
Letting go. Yeah.
Okay. So the next, it's just gonna keep going. It's just gonna keep going. So, as far as comparing, right? As people, as individuals, we compare ourselves to all like every day. Even if we don't want to do it, it's something that is a human characteristic that we all do. Even if we don't want to do it, we do it. Okay. But that brings me to the next thing, right? When you compare yourself to others, it kind of really prevents you from being able to kind of let things go when things happen. This person's doing this perfect, so I need to do it perfect. This person did this right, so I need to do it right? This person has this, I need to have that. No. Let that go. Let that go and understand that just because somebody has something or somebody did something, earned something, gained something, doesn't mean that you need to have it. Let it go. Not just that, but then you talk about and you look at, situations where you did something wrong, situations where you fall short as a brother, as a human, as a partner, as a coach, situations where you do things wrong do not solidify who you are.
And I'm happy you're touching up on that, because it just goes back to, these kids, like, you make a mistake, you got to let it go. Because I've lived in my head. And I think it was more when I was playing basketball. For whatever reason, I'm missing a shot or I create a turnover. it's living in your head back and down the court.
Yeah.
Like, you just cannot have that because it's always going to be worse for you. And if you sit there and complain about it more than like a second or two, man, it's going to be a problem. Like, if you're hot-headed, learn you're hot-headed. You got to get that crap out of your head, man, and you got to keep it going. Because if you just live on this mistake or like, oh, I'm going to hear about this tomorrow or on film or whatever, you just got to keep living. You got to let it go, because if you don't, it's going to ruin the game.
It's crazy, man. I just it's really hard for me to not compare things to, like, obviously comparison's the thief of joy, like I said, but the correlation between like sports and the real world is just so ridiculously strange to me because it's so present. And like you said, you make a bad play, you have to let it go, right? If I make a bad call as a coach, I got to let it go, right? If I make a bad decision as a brother or as a son, or do something in the real world I probably shouldn't, you got to let it go. But the key to this, right, when you're letting things go and like you have to move on from plan A to plan B, or you have to leave something behind and move to the next phase of life, or, move on to the next play, next quarter, next drive, it doesn't matter what you're letting go of, but what you're letting go of, like, you need to understand that while you're letting go and you're in the midst of that, you need to comprehend how you can be better from it.
Learn from it.
So instead of sitting back like, oh my gosh, I did this wrong as a player, as a coach, like, oh my gosh, like, this is terrible, this is all my fault,
How did I do it?
How do you handle it?
Why
how
did
do you
I
handle
do
it? Like, how do you overcome that adversity within your own mental state to understand, like, how do you comprehend and let go of something that happened, right? I told you earlier, like, I had some things that, I still hadn't forgiven in my personal life, from 6 years ago to a year or 6 months or 2 weeks. Like, there are situations in my life where I haven't forgiven myself for my actions or the actions of others that I needed to let go of.
Yeah.
And, as a person, letting go of these things and understanding how it can make you a better human, that stuff is so important. And what you need to do is take action in that instant and become better from it, be better for it. And as an athlete, if a coach is telling you did something wrong, don't sit there and shake your head and be like, oh, I'm never going to get this right. Ask them, how can I get this right? What can I do? And then work on it. Take corrective action, put in extra work after practice, really dig deep and just be better. Let go of the mistakes, because the mistakes don't make you, they build you, right? Mistakes don't necessarily hinder you from what other people see, but how you react to those mistakes and what comes of a mistake is what people see. So be progressive in the failures of life, right? That's huge to me. Like, that hits. Be progressive in the failures of life, because each failure you have, there's lessons and bits and pieces of wisdom or learning that you can take away from that and be better for. And so, like I said, be progressive in your failures, because your failures are eventually going to add to success. When it rains, the sun's coming. When it rains, the sun's coming. I don't care if it rains for a week, 2 weeks, whatever. It's going to rain, but I'll see the sun later. I promise you that. And I'm going to dance in the rain as much as I possibly can, because that's who I am. Like, the thing is in life, loss and grieving and learning and all of this stuff, it's for such a big purpose, man. It's for such a big purpose. And if you don't learn from it and let it go, and if you don't really comprehend and let things go as an athlete, a person, a professional, any of this stuff, if you don't learn from this stuff, you'll be stuck for life. You'll be stuck for life. So take the things, the loss, the heartbreak, the life lessons, the lessons while you're being coached by somebody else. Take the things that break you and let it build you up into being a better person and human being or athlete or any of those things, right? Be progressive in your failures and let things go and continue to move forward. That right there, for me, that was something I really wanted to touch on, because that's something that's been on my chest heavy, right? Like I told you, there's a lot of loss and a lot of things I had to let go of. and honestly, like turning to God and understanding his purpose and understanding that forgiveness is the key to a peaceful life. Like I really aspire to continue to have that, you know, like not everything's always going to be peaceful. There's going to be storms and trials and tribulations, but how you react and progressing in those failures are huge. And being an athlete that's able to progress through that is also a big thing. And, you know, it correlates. It all does. I mean, like if I looked at you, Irv, and I said, listen, man, you are really, really bad about this. It needs to improve. You know, you can either take that and progressively get better and improve on it, or you can sit on it and just be like, wow, he really called me a POS. Like I'm terrible. I'm terrible. Like, how am I going to fix this? Take action, be progressive in your failures, and continue to progress through life.
But talking about, you know, embracing in your opportunities for growth, especially when we're talking about these kids and, you know, you being a coach and stuff, the high school guys, you know, you just got to stay ready. And it's very simple. You just stay ready, you wait for your opportunity, and you make the most of it. And especially if you're not one of those guys that are getting the playing time that you think you deserve. You just have to be ready, because I've seen it happen. You know, kid might get hurt. We got to put someone else in. They mess it up completely, and we got to replace him with someone else right off the bat. So you just gotta be ready. That's why showing up is so important, and taking these opportunities to be the best you can be.
Yeah, you know, and the best way to get comfortable is to embrace the uncomfortable, right? Like embracing in the unknown and understanding that anything is bound to happen. Like think about that. Like that's pretty big stuff too. Like you never know what, after I leave this podcast, what my day's gonna bring me, you know? Like you never know. And it's just about embracing the unknown and, you know, being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. I'll give you an example as an athlete, and I'll give you an example as like me in my profession now, right? So it was my sophomore year of high school. This is when Ben Logan was good, right? We were doing really well. We were on the climb. We were going to the playoffs. You know, it was us and Indian Lake at the top. We were playing Urbana, and Urbana always had like these muscle hamsters, man. They were all big and jacked and juicy, and you know they were big. I don't know if juicy. I don't know.
Keep going.
I don't know if juicy was the word, but anyways, so I'm like on special teams units at this point, and my Coach Fay looks at me. He looks at me. He's like, B-Bart, back wall. It's punt, right? And I was shivering in my boots, man. I was freaking out. I was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna get ran over. I'm gonna get ran over. Like you said, embracing your opportunity and always being ready, right? I got pummeled, dude. My helmet fell off my head. I got jacked up. And I go off, and the coach goes, well, at least they didn't block the punt. And I was like, yeah, right. Yeah, but what I'm saying is like, if I was mentally telling myself that I was ready for that opportunity, and I was actually like, I'm gonna defeat whatever's coming at me, and I don't care what it is, then maybe I wouldn't have gotten pummeled to the ground, you know? So like embracing your opportunities is also like I said, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Like I should have looked at their entire defense in the eye and said, listen, come at me, please. Right? But in this situation, you know, I was quote unquote wearing a diaper, right? It was not good. I got ran over, helmet fell off my head, but we won the ball game. So that was pretty cool. But occupationally, right? If we go into my occupation, you know, I'm a corporate communications guy. I'm an on-site supervisor, so you know I do a lot of orientation presentations. I had a presentation, right, with Honda leadership, and we were presenting, and I was the one that was leading the slides. I had never been more nervous in my entire life because I knew that everybody that was in leadership at Honda was there, and I knew that people were silently judging, right? Okay. So I was worried about what everybody else thought about me, which I shouldn't have, right? But then I also was super nervous about who all was in the room and their status within the company. So I get up there and I'm reading this sheet of paper and I'm like staring in one spot, right? Just speed reading. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just speed reading. But shortly after that, we had a group of 45 people come in that were starting at the plant like a couple weeks later. And I was the orientation leader for that. I finally just like talked, like, it's all about what you feed yourself, right? Like whether you're mentally like telling yourself that you're going to win or whether you're mentally telling yourself you're defeated. Because if there is a thought of defeat in your mind before you're even doing it, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's just in everything in general, right? So, positive self-talk is just a huge thing, man. Like what you tell yourself is huge. And that situation, dude, talk about embracing opportunities for growth. Both of those situations, one as an athlete and one as a professional, it was all stimulated off of what I was telling myself. Like, I'm going to kill this is going to be great, or this is going to be really bad. So positive self-talk as an athlete and really boosting yourself up a little bit is important. Now, I'm not saying be cocky and like, I'm that guy mentality, but secretly in your head, you kind of have to have a little bit of that.
You got to be a little bit, yes, you got to have some sort of that inside of you, because if you don't, then, like, a fighter can't go into a fight thinking, oh, I'm going to lose this, because if you do, then you're going to definitely lose. And I've been around plenty of teams. Sometimes you hear, like, oh, we're going to lose. I'm like, you can't be talking like that, man. You just cannot be, because that's how it is, man. If you already have it written up in your head like that, that's just what it's gonna be like. But just kind of talking about this topic and the story that you gave us, I want to give a story as well that kind of goes into taking in your opportunities and just being prepared. It was Miles Plattfoot, his senior year. He was the starting quarterback for the Riverside Pirates for the past 4 years, right? And he got hurt. We were playing our rival Lehman at Lehman. He gets hurt, I think, like second quarter of the game, something like that. And Gavin Osborne, backup quarterback, he hasn't started a game yet because Miles has been the starter the whole time. And we all knew Gav was great.
Yeah.
But he just hadn't had his opportunity because Miles was also great. And Gav comes in, man, that kid scores like I think 4 to 5 touchdowns and brings us the game. And that was something special to see. So like
embracing the opportunity.
That's what you're trying to do, man. You just got to be prepared, and I believe if I believe Miles had that same story his freshman year. Something happened, and he had to step in, and that boy just took off. They almost had like the similar stories of just kind of being prepared and just balling out when they needed to be there.
You think that the positive self-talk is a huge thing then too? Like just about like what you're telling yourself and feeding yourself?
Yes.
Like I'm assuming that when that all happened and Miles, Miles went down, Gavin came in. I'm assuming when this was happening, Gavin was probably like, I got this. Like I'm ready for this. Like, let's do it. Now, vice versa, if you're a quarterback that's going in there, that's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, embracing your opportunities is huge in athletics, in your profession even. And those are really key components of something that's very important. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was just how athletics and being involved in athletics, whether it's a coach or an athlete, is an escape, right? Like being a coach, being an athlete, I've realized that it is an escape, man. And for me, it's the escape of getting out of my comfort zone and learning a little bit more and just trying to be better, man. And as athletes, it's escaping their life at home or the stress of school or the expectations of being a student athlete in high school that nobody talks about. But it's an escape for us all. As a coach, I find it very fulfilling and satisfying to know that I'm making an impact on somebody else's life that goes way beyond being an athlete, but also as an adult or a person. And I'm still learning because I'm only 24, that I have more to learn and to learn from other people as well. So, I think genuinely that being involved in athletics, even on your end, you get to become a little bit more wiser from the stories that you've heard and the people that you've met along the way. And I genuinely think that not just for the athlete, but the coaches as well, I think that it's a nice, peaceful outlet for one to gain insight on somebody else's life, or, how to overcome certain situations that they need to overcome as well. And that's also pretty sick, in my opinion.
And I think, it just kind of, sports are just always going to be around for us, no matter whether it is you coaching, whether it's me being on the sidelines, being with the team, or just people watching on TV. It's very special. So, for example, and it also goes to like us not being on the sports team. We're still working out, and that's very crucial to our life, to our mental, longevity, to our physical. Yeah. And it's just like for example, like when I'm going to train with Cam, when I'm doing some boxing over there, like everything else disappears. For that hour, everything else doesn't matter. Yeah. I'm just in there learning, I'm in there sweating, I'm in there working, I'm in there doing what I love.
You get out of your head.
Right.
Like you get the chance to just kind of let loose and nothing else matters but the moment. And that's another thing that sports teaches us, man, live in the moment, live for the now, because you don't know what's next. Being in the moment is a very important thing. And like you said, when you go and spar and do the stuff with Cam that you're doing, you're leaving your head and you're focusing on what's in front of you. Like, you know that like UFC and jiu-jitsu and things of that nature, the athletes typically meditate or do things of that nature, kind of get into a headspace that, elevates them and, creates a headspace where they're ready to rock, right?
Right.
That's something that anybody can do on their day-to-day, man. Like understanding that, embracing the now, and the only thing that's promised to you is now.
Right now, yeah.
The only thing that's promised to you is right now. So, do something with the now that that you have the promised time that you do have. Make sure that you're doing something in that time that's going to help you, or put you in front of the ball. And man, when you talked about having things to talk about in here today, I mean, I've had a list just forming in my head for 6 months or however long it's been since we've been in here.
Has it really been that long?
I don't know. I really don't know. I will tell you, though, like, I was ready to fire away.
Alex's episode was 6 months ago. Yeah. Oh, my dear. No way. Yeah. Okay, so first... Also,
we've learned a lot, dude.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome, and I'm really happy that I've gotten to meet some of these people that we've had in here and just continue to build a relationship off of that. But before we get off here, just a few more things. We're gonna try and figure out the we got guests lined up, right? But we have a few things we gotta fix before we can get someone else in here. So. Just stick around and wait for that next guest.
The last 6 months definitely have been some sort of interesting, and honestly, man, like I told you, there was a lot of things that I needed to let go of and grow from and really genuinely like let go of and kick out the door, right? There's a lot of things that I needed to get in the right mindset to get back in here, and there's no better time than right now. I'm pretty what's the word for it? Zen? not like the nicotine pouch, but like I'm pretty at peace with life, and the people I have in it right now, I'm pretty blessed. Still learning, still growing, still kind of navigating.
Yeah,
but
I think let's be real. That's just gonna be life. That's just forever
so
thing.
We're gonna stay on top of this and start getting things rolling. I feel like.
Yeah. So again, we'll have guests in here soon. For the meantime, it'll just be me and Cole until we get things figured out. And again, Coach Miller, guest of the year for the previous, for the last year. And thanks again for everyone that has been a part of this thing.
One last thing I want to touch on before Irv lets this thing go. If any of you, watch this and follow this frequently and, are going through a tough time or need some advice, please ask us. Q&As are definitely something that I'm open to, and I know that Irv would be open to too. But if you ever need something, as far as life or athletic goes, or anything of that nature, and you just need some advice or somebody to listen, Irv and I are here for that. And this is a platform not only to help promote healthy, mindsets as young athletes, but also to help learn and also spread wisdom. So, like Irv said, we're really happy to be here for others, to help people grow and to learn the stories of others. And we do have guests lined up, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm ready to get this thing rolling.
End it.
Oh. So we can end it now?
Yes.
So, it's obviously always good to be back in here, to catch up and kind of, cut up some things and cover some topics that are kind of tough to cover in typical setting. Been 6 months, man, and honestly, we've learned a lot this last year. Had to let go of a lot of things and grow a lot and mentally get to where we could be here and share a little bit more wisdom and learn from others. So I really look forward to what this year brings. It's a lot of new opportunity, and we look forward to having you here in the future, and we hope you stay tuned for more.
God bless.